Hi guys, so Lord Frost, the former Brexit Minister, appeared on GB News. You know, because appearing on the BBC, or God forbid James O'Brien of LBC, would involve difficult questioning. Actually, I take that back. The BBC would probably ask him something like what his favourite colour is. I would give anything to interview Lord Frost. I would actually have some very interesting questions for him. Anyway, he was asked by an interviewer, what Brexit meant for him. And his response was interesting. Let's have a listen.
We're giving all these rather interesting, if underreported, speeches hither and yon, and there were a couple of phrases there that leapt out at me. I think you said this in Lisbon. Brexit is about doing things differently, not for the sake of it, but because it suits us and because it creates a greater variety of alternative futures. That's an intriguing phrase, a greater variety of alternative futures. What do you mean by that?
So Brexit was about bringing politics home.
Sorry to interrupt so quickly, but bringing politics home? What the heck does that mean? I'm really tired of his cliches. He just has these fixed expressions that he comes out with that don't actually make any sense. Bringing politics home. It's like, does he mean that we don't want to be represented in the European Parliament anymore? We just want to isolate ourselves. We want to become the North Korea of Europe. What the hell does he mean by bringing politics home?
It was about bringing democracy back to Britain.
Okay. Lord Frost, the unelected bureaucrat, is talking about democracy here. So everyone sit down. Let's have a listen about what democracy means by the guy who's unelected, who's not an MP. He didn't run for office, but he was dropped into this position because he served a purpose for Boris Johnson. Democracy. You know, I've said this before. The European parliamentary elections use a system called proportional representation, which is much better, much more representative than first past the post, which is the UK model, or a model used in the UK, sorry. And we have Lord Frost, the unelected bureaucrat, probably criticizing unelected bureaucrats in Europe by saying, yes, we need to have democracy. We need to talk about democracy. We have to bring democracy back to Britain.
So we could set our own rules, make our own destiny in the world.
Once again, make our own rules, make our own destiny in the world. Well, maybe he's right here, yes. We want to make our own rules. We want to be able to pump raw sewage into our rivers and lakes. We weren't able to do that before, or we could, but we'd face fines from the European Union. Now we can do it for free. We can do it as much as we want. We can also take away protections from workers. We can also reduce standards and allow the country to be flooded by cheap, for example, New Zealand or Australian meat products. Isn't that great?
World again, and that means that we've got to win the arguments here.
We have to win the arguments. And sorry to interrupt every few seconds, but win what arguments? Now, if he means win the arguments by lying, because what's interesting is he used to be a Remainer. So he's talking about Brexiteers winning the arguments. Well, the Brexiteers lied. So is it about lying again? So when there's a problem related to Brexit, we have to convince the public that's not because of Brexit, it's because of something else. That's winning the argument. We know how the Brexiteers won the argument the last time. They lied.
Again, for people like me, that means winning the arguments for free markets, for freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech? What the heck has freedom of speech got to do with the European Union? Did the European Union stop people being able to express themselves in Britain? Well, it's actually the Tory government that's been clamping down on free speech. They're trying to push through bills that stop people from protesting. And thanks to his colleagues, not him, but his colleagues in the House of Lords, they stopped that. They rejected this encroachment on people's freedoms. You have this unelected bureaucrat who's campaigned, well, not campaigned, but helped deliver the ending of freedom of movement, and he's talking about freedom of speech.
For free economies, but other people don't think like that. We've got to win those arguments. So
we have to lie to them again. That's it. We have to look. We can't win the argument by talking about facts because we didn't do that before. So we have to win the argument again by, regurgitating the lies of the past. When somebody says, "Look at this problem in Dover," we have to tell them that's not a problem, or that's nothing to do with Brexit.
In that sense, there's a variety of futures, but they're futures that we choose now as British people, forging our own destiny in the world, making our own future and succeeding or failing on our own 2 feet.
Does anyone understand what the heck he's talking about there? Our own destiny? For example, the trade deals. The trade deals that Liz Truss signed are worse than the agreements that existed before. The protections for farmers have been taken away. This is the destiny. This is what he wants. I've said before, Brexiteers, he's a Brexiteer now because a Brexiteer is somebody who still thinks Brexit is a good idea. Doesn't matter if they voted for it or not. Somebody who still thinks Brexit is a good idea, despite all the damage it's doing, is a Brexiteer. He wants other people to suffer, and he's happy for that. He's happy to see that happen because he's not impacted by it. Now, what I find interesting about Lord Frost is that while he was a government minister, he wouldn't give any interviews. Why is that? I questioned it at the time. This is somebody who's very important. I'd like to know what he has to say. He was a government minister for at least a year and a half, I think. Or at least a year, I think. And he never gave any interviews. He was interviewed on the street by a few journalists, but there were, just some questions about, how are things going with the European Union, things like that. But he never sat down and had a real interview, or not that I've seen. And now he's doing it. Why is that? Why are right-wing channels so interested in what he has to say at the moment? He's not a government minister anymore. He's just a member of the House of Lords. I have a feeling that he wants to be a future minister. I think that's what he's positioning himself for. He's giving these interviews because it benefits him. And the right-wing Tories love this guy for some reason. What has he achieved? He agreed a withdrawal agreement, and then less than a year after he was saying it has to be torn up. The guy is an idiot. I would even go as far as to say that he's a charlatan. Because what does he represent? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.